Welcome. My name is Harmony Quaker, and I'm the founder of the Institute for Spiritual Alignment, where we offer ongoing learning opportunities for therapists, coaches, and anyone who's passionate about bridging the divide between traditional psychotherapy and coaching and spiritual transformation. If you're wanting to learn how to listen to and communicate better with your own subtle energy, then this video is for you. Before we dive into that, I want to share with you my new book, Align Living and Loving from the True Self. Align offers a comprehensive map with really practical tools to come back home to the core of your being, the alignment with your truest self, and how to bring your true self with you into all of your relationships, including your deepest intimacy. I also have these new self-guided alignment cards, and I'm really excited about these cards. There's 48 cards, and on every card, there is a wisdom teaching piece and a sentence stem to support you in living and loving from the true self. These cards are great for your own contemplative practices, but they're also really great for work with clients and groups and so on and so forth. So, as I've shared with you before, I've always been able to see subtle energy, but what I wasn't aware of was my own emotional energy that I was holding within my body. And over the years, I've learned that it's really important for me to have daily practices, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, where I clear my emotional energy so that I can feel more like myself. Because as an energy sensitive being, sometimes I unconsciously acquire the energy from around me, and my own energy needs tended to in order for me to feel really lit up about life and really vital and excited to be of service. Before I learned how to work with my own emotional energy, and I use the acronym EEP, EEP, Emotional Energy Pollution. Before I learned how to work with my own EEP, I was walking around carrying a lot of unresolved experiences inside of my emotional energy body, as well as I was carrying around the emotions of the people around me. And there was this overlap between the two. And as you can imagine, carrying around so much emotional energy pollution, my vitality was thwarted and distorted. And when our vitality is distorted, we are clinging to our ego and we're disowning aspects of ourselves, and our emotional energy pollution gets caught up in that distortion. And as long as we continue to ignore our distortion and our emotional energy pollution, even our best efforts to create the life of our dreams, to do good work in the world, those best efforts can feel wonky and have a distorted impact on the world around us. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm doing everything right. I I thought, that I was being a good person was going to be enough, but there was more within me that needed tended to. And when I started to honor what I now know to be the transpersonal, that's when I was really able to begin to transform my own EEP as well as the EEP of my clients. So, the transpersonal is a branch of psychology and philosophy that honors experiences beyond the ordinary. In the transpersonal, transcendent experiences are considered normal, access to higher dimensions is considered healthy. And for me, there's also this element of having a connection to divine beings that we might not be able to see with our ordinary eyes. We might be able to see them with our metaphysical eyes, depending on how clear and open our system is. But fairies and angels and helpers and guides, they're all available for us through the lens of the transpersonal. And when we access them in service of clearing our own emotional energy pollution, we recognize that the energy is clearing not because of our own effort alone, our curiosity and our seeing and our asking is important, but that we have help, that we are actually designed to be in our health. And when we remember, when we awaken and honor and stay connected to the truth of who we are, our higher consciousness, elements that are beyond the ordinary mind, then we can continue to develop practices that feel resonant to us. So, with that, I want to say that I'm not imposing my ideas onto you, but I do want to offer you the suggestion that maybe there are helpers with you that can support you in clearing your own emotional energy pollution. And just by being curious about that, maybe an opening happens. So, many of us are conditioned to ignore our emotional energy pollution and sort of pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and forge on and figure out a way, typically from our mind, not from the wholeness of who we are, not from our higher consciousness, from our heart, from our intuition, typically from our mind, and we turn away from the more subtle aspects of who we are. So, the first element of learning how to communicate to and listen to our emotional energy pollution is curiosity. The movement of curiosity is so vastly different from the movement of ignoring and turning away that the curiosity itself already starts to create a shift. A curious mind, an open mind, is an expression of a healthy mind. And so, just by looking and being curious and sensing into, with our intuitive senses, how we're feeling beyond the obvious, deeper than the obvious, below the emotion, that begins to create some movement and a bridge to communicate with our emotional energy. As a clinician, I've learned that when I see the subtle energy of my clients, my curiosity about what I'm seeing starts to create that communication in the bridge. I don't need to be right with what I see, but I do need to be curious. And my curiosity invites their curiosity. And once we are curious, the energy is listened to and communicated with in such a way that it begins to move and offers us the information necessary to fully resolve and clarify and move through their system. So, curiosity is the number one element in listening to and communicating with your subtle energy and your emotional energy pollution. Once you're curious about your emotional state and what your emotional body is holding, um, there's also this element of wondering, does this emotion belong to me? Does this energy belong to me? Or does it belong to somebody else? Or is it both? And just looking at that can start to create even more movement. And we can often get these epiphanies of, oh, this thought or this feeling actually doesn't belong to me. I've acquired that from someone else. And that one element of clarity can bring somebody back to themselves actually quite quickly. So, when you notice your emotional state with curiosity, the next step is asking yourself, does this belong to me? And be curious about that without a definitive answer. Just curious, does this belong to me? And sit and listen and wait. And if you recognize that the emotion does belong to somebody else, that that energy does belong to somebody else, just see, is there also a thread that is mine to process? Once you're clear on what is yours to process, what can seem overwhelming before now is clarified down to an element. And this is why that step is so important. Once you're clarified down to an element of the energy that you are ready to transform, that you are ready to process and learn from, seeing it with clarity, really looking at it without trying to fix it, change it, or figure it out is really, really important, because we want to honor the energy. We don't want to resist it. We don't want to just make it go away. We want to honor that it's here. We want to hold it as sacred. It's a sacred communication from our spirit. And so holding it with curiosity, seeing it, seeing if it has a color or a shape, and then seeing if it has something it wants to say. If this sensation or this energy in your body had a voice, what would it say? And I'm going to give you an example. Um, Oftentimes, clients will have a ball, a sensation of a ball in their throat, in the energy center in their throat. And it's an energetic stagnancy. And so we wrap it with awareness. I invite them to wrap it with awareness. I use my awareness. I'm looking also. And then I'll ask my client, if the sensation had a voice, what would it say? And I want them to speak from the first person. And this is important. This is different from, it would say that it is stuck, is different from, I'm stuck. Right? And so just saying that again, if that's what is here, I'm stuck. And just feeling that stuckness begins to create some movement, because that energy feels heard without being resisted, without trying to be vanquished. So being curious, wondering if it's yours or if it belongs to somebody else, being curious about why it's here, what it wants to say. And then the last piece is, what does it need from you? So you see it, you're hearing it, it's stuck, and just being curious, what do you need from me? And that begins to create a secure base with yourself where you're really honoring what's happening with you and just waiting and listening for the answer with deep, deep curiosity. So that's just a little taste of working with your own subtle energy. There's actually so much more. There's so many ways to move subtle energy. In my book, Align, I talk about 5 ways to move subtle energy. And I also have an online course that's for everybody. It's not just for therapists and coaches. It's called Living Your Alignment, and it's on my offerings page on my website, thespirituallyaligned.com/offerings. And I really just want to encourage you to keep listening to your energy, keep honoring your whole being with as much reverence as possible. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wish you so much blessing and goodness as you continue this work of really listening to yourself.